Okay, so today I'm going to be interviewing Dr. Alan Glazier, and then basically give you guys a little background on him. So first, he graduated from University of Maryland College Park, went to NICO for his optometry degree, is also a fellow and a diplomate, right? And then he also founded ODs on Facebook, which is 37,000 members strong. He also started odsonfacebook.com. He has a practice of, it's called Shady Grove Eye and Vision Care Center, and that's in Rockville, Maryland. He also partnered with Total ECP. He's a contributing editor to Optometric Management Magazine and Optometry Times Magazine. He's an inventor of 7 issued patents in computer science and ophthalmology. He does a lot of lectures, and he's authored a lot of books, and also founder of MyopiaInstitute.com. He's a consultant for J&J Vision Care, VTI Vision, PRM, Percept Corporation,
QAI.
Oh, AI, like artificial intelligence?
Yeah, it's
okay.
a new thing.
Oh, okay, that's very interesting. FLOE EverydayContacts.com, Total ECP, and GPN, which I mentioned before, and does a lot of consulting services. So if you needed anything for consulting, he's definitely a guy to go to. Anything I'm missing out on?
Proud father of two boys,
sons. I saw that on
teenagers.
Facebook.
Even one just crushed his ACTs this week. We were
nice.
Yeah, so I'm like on cloud 9 in fact.
Oh,
yeah.
okay. All the hard work paid off.
Yeah.
Oh. Yeah. Do you know what school he wants to do? What's his dream school?
Both of my boys are huge sports fans. They're both only considering big rah-rah football schools.
Okay.
So on his list is Texas, Georgia, Michigan, Wisconsin, and now that he did great on his ACT, maybe we can look up a tier. We'll see.
Yeah, excellent. That's so exciting.
I
still remember my SAT days, and it was like, it's fun.
Yeah, waiting for those results.
Yeah, now you can relax. Let's kind of start off with kind of an introduction of how you started your private practice.
So I started my private practice in an interesting way. When I got out of optometry school, my father was an OD, and he had a small 1 doctor, 1 employee VT practice we're in the Maryland suburbs of Washington, D.C. We don't want to be confused with Baltimore. But nothing wrong with Baltimore, but I get a crack in on everybody that I can during these things. And then, so he had a practice, small practice, and then I opened a practice about 10 miles away. And I would work with him a couple days while I got that going. And then about 2 years in, he suddenly passed away young at 60. And I was left with, and then I had to purchase his practice from the estate if I wanted to. Mm-hmm. And then I had these 2 things, and I couldn't do them both. So I tried to merge them. And about 40% of the patients, it was 10 miles away, so about 40% of those patients actually came and helped give it a boost. And then I spent the next 2 years just trying to figure out how to run a business, because I had run businesses, but not service businesses like that before, I would retail stuff. And once I wrapped my head around how to do that, we were in a little townhouse. It was kind of tucked away. It wasn't a great location. It wasn't a great zip code. And I started studying marketing because I didn't have any money to budget marketing. So, and this was in the early days of the internet. So we're talking right now about 97, 99. And back then you could game the SEO started to become important from 2 angles. From just search in Google became popular because Google came around 95-ish. And then people were searching for their doctors by zip code. And when I found this out, I went to the Chamber of Commerce. I started studying the zip codes in the area, and I figured out that I was just a block away from a zip code with a ton of more businesses that had insurances that we participated on, and a ton of more high-end residences. So I literally just hopped across the street. When the lease ran out, I hopped across the street into a building, and I calculated that we would probably get a 20% boost right away. Mm-hmm. So I also expanded, and I put more money into it, counting on that, and we got about like a 23% increase in business from that move. Wow. And ever since then, I was like, I got to keep studying the marketing, and the marketing is really what drove my success in practice. That, and I think I'm a pretty good doc.
Yeah.
Also understanding how to scale it, like learning how to scale it by reading, talking to consultants and experts, and when maxing that out, switching consultants and experts, because not everyone is right for the time or place you are in practice. Exactly. And then I'm reading business books after that. So each phase required a different level of self-education and seeking out the knowledge I needed to take it to the next level. And that's kind of how I built it.
Yeah, so
And
you
it went from
basically
a
were marketer.
yeah, it went from a $300,000 practice to a $3.5 million practice. And it took 25 years. I could have done it faster, but it was the right pace for me. I'm a low maintenance guy. I prefer not to work too hard, and I'll spend more on staff to avoid the headaches of HR and stuff. So it grew at a great pace. I was really happy and proud of it, and then I sold it to Total Eye Care a year ago this month. It's crazy.
Yeah, I was actually at that conference at Vision Expo. That's where I met you. And
Oh,
you were
yeah,
talking
that's
about
right.
the private equity stuff, and I thought that was really interesting. So we'll save for that. We'll save
well,
that for the,
absolutely.
the next part.
How I was marketing before the sale was really working on our presence in Google and using our internal marketing software, customer communication softwares, to kind of drive messaging to the existing patient base and encourage people to refer.
Okay.
So we have multiple touch points around the practice where the staff is encouraged to tell people, oh, you have 3 people in your family that haven't been in, you want to set them up an exam. We do the internal stuff, and then external, we're placing ourselves in a position so that when people search for the products and services we hope to be found for, we come up first. Yeah.
So a lot of SEO and a lot of market research and what people are searching for.
Yeah, and internal marketing, I call that, yeah.
Okay. All right, and then, let's see, what was your I've made it moment with your practice? Where did you feel like, okay, I can kind of relax now, I'm not just grinding every day?
I never ever felt, I think one of the things that made me successful was I always feel like I'm one mistake away from being homeless. I always feel like it's right, and it's not ever going to happen at this point, but that feeling, that insecurity has driven me to just be that way all the time. But I will tell you, I always had a dream practice in mind, and I don't have a design eye. I didn't like envision it. I envisioned the size, what we would offer, what we would have, and how it might look. And in 2014, I was able to expand my existing footprint into that, and I hired a designer, and he designed it out, and we won awards, and it's a beautiful place to practice. It's people walk in there and they tell us they just want to hang out there because it's so nice.
Yeah.
That was a moment that I was particularly proud of, and it was a transition in the way when I walked into work that I felt about, okay, I've arrived.
Yeah.
You know, that was that.
I saw pictures, it's really nice.
Thanks.
I love it's like the textile on the walls. It's so nice, the white walls.
Yeah, he did a lot of that, things I would have never thought of.
No,
And I did something interesting. I hired somebody outside of optometry to do the look. And that was good because
really good.
You know, he's like, well, what do you want to do? I said, I don't know what I want to do, but I know I want it to be warm and inviting. And he's like, well, why don't we make it like a really nice living room? And I'm like, that sounds like a neat idea. I don't know any practices that do that. And as a result, it's different that way.
Yeah, that's what it reminds me of, a living room. It's very cozy. So.
It's nicer than my living room.
Which softwares do you currently use at your practice, and what do you like?
So we are using OfficeMate, an exam writer, and we've used that since we got software in in the early 2000s, and scaled that over time. I don't know anymore what we're using for customer communication software. For a while we were at Demandforce, then we went to, I think, Solution Reach. And I'm not sure where we are now. Like, I don't have to know that anymore.
Yeah.
It's great.
Yeah.
I have an outsourced CFO who does all the finances and stuff through his sophisticated QuickBooks. And he not only does all the accounting and the bill management and keeping, but he also raises red flags when he sees we're becoming less profitable so that we can change things around. It's really helpful not to have to keep an eye on that.
Yeah. It seems like a very hands-off approach, which is good.
It's a delegated approach, it's a simplified approach. If you want to have a life and run a practice, you have to figure out how not to micromanage. Or you have to be comfortable delegating, and that's a hard thing to learn. It's not natural for most people, and the better you can be at it, the more freedom you have. For the past 15 years, I've only seen patients 3 days a week. I've had 3-day weekends every week and Wednesdays off, so I'm not burned out.
Let's talk a little bit about Total ECP. Tell me a little bit about the process. I remember your talk, but for the viewers, just kind of to go over how the method of how it happened.
So I turned 50 3 years ago. Yike. And
you don't look it.
Thank you, you're sweet. And you said the right thing. I turned 50 and I started thinking, about my exit, in 10, 15 years. because that's what the practice management people tell you to do, even earlier than that, but I had put it off because I didn't have any intention to stop. And I thought about, over the years when you have an independent practice, you'll get offers from people, even if you're not looking.
Right.
And I considered some of those, not seriously, but I learned a lot from digging down on that. And then it occurred to me that, the options that I had to exit were limited in my area. And one of them was to sell it to my young docs, and the other one was to sell it to my eye doctor. It's really the only buyer in our area. And the young docs, they had a lot of debt, they had other interests, they really didn't want to buy it. And I didn't set up with any expectations they would, but I wanted to give them an opportunity. And then I didn't see my practice, I didn't see it becoming my eye doctor, unless that was the only opportunity to sell, because it is my asset, it is for my family, and that's it. So about a year later, coincidentally, I get approached by Ben Gaddy, who's a good friend of mine. And Ben tells me about this concept for a conglomeration of practices that come together and become owned by one entity that help each other out in terms of lowering costs by leveraging their power and buying power and things like that. And that sounded great and everything, but what I really thought was sexy about it was going to be a medical model. They were going to grow based on growing the optometry medical side of things, and not going low end in optical like a lot of the other consolidators do. And he was partnered with Jay Binkowitz of GPN, who's a brilliant optical design. I mean, everything optometry his company does, but he really focuses on profiting in the optical and the look and the feel and the sales angle. And Jay had been running my optical, his company, for like 8 years.
Oh.
So they were both doing this together, and so I perked up and I started listening to what they were going to do. And what they put together, how I describe it, is a legacy exit for independent ODs. So my practice in selling to this didn't change. The name didn't change. The patients walk in, and the only thing they may notice is that things are more efficient because we now have a certain call center, or we have the receptionists aren't sitting on the phones and checking them in anymore. And so we came together, with the purpose of growing the medical model of the optometric practice with a group that could support each other to do that. So now I found a good exit, but I'm still involved in the company helping them grow that. And it's really fun. A year ago, we had me and Ben's practice, that was it. At the last meeting a couple weeks ago, we have over 35 practices, and there were 55 docs at the meeting. So it's growing, it's got a great buzz in the industry, and people are excited about it because now they don't have to change their legacy when they sell their practice or work for a company that is really driving that doctors to produce.
Right.
They can do what they've always done, because if it's successful, why change it if it's
How
working?
many states is it in? How many practices?
I think we're in 12 states right now, and we're going to be expanding into 2 to 6 more in the really near future.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. So is it that you have partnership with just your practice, or is it the other new practices you have?
So it's a private equity backed thing. So they buy the practices.
Okay.
And some people can keep some ownership. We definitely encourage the doctors to keep working if they want to.
Right.
But that's kind of how it works. I don't own the practice anymore.
Okay.
Yeah, which is weird.
Yeah. But you're just working and seeing your patients.
I'm doing that, and then I have a role with the company and helping to find the good target practices. We are exclusive in the sense that we're looking for a specific type of practice, somebody who already is a medical model practice and has a certain revenue. If it's too small, we'll wait for them to mature.
Yeah.
So it's an exit for mature practices. Really.
Okay. Well, that's so interesting.
Yeah.
I wish I could talk to you all day
You'll
about
be there
that.
soon.
So
You can. Then you have more editing to do.
So how did you start ODs on Facebook?
So I love to talk about this, of course, because that's a passion of mine. When I've always liked to be collegial and communicate with my colleagues online. And in the 90s, by the way, at the ODs on Facebook party, we'll be honoring the father of OD social media. His name is Walt Mayo. He actually is the one that started the online listservs and the early sites that people went to, Optcom list, to communicate. And I was a member of those. And in the 2000s, there was one of these communities that I was engaged in. It was a login, kind of an old style forum, and there was no real moderation in there. So people who are prone to use the distance the internet creates to act in ways they normally wouldn't face to face, would start to engage in there and make it unpleasant to me in certain ways. For me specifically, they would talk about politics. And unless you're a really close OD friend of mine, I'm really not interested in talking to my OD people. I want to talk clinical practice management and have a little fun and get to know you.
Yeah.
And believe me, I have skin as thick as the next person, but it's a waste of time to have to look through that stuff, and I don't have time for that.
Right.
So I got frustrated enough at one point on there, and Facebook was nascent. This was about for me, it was like 2009, 2010, where I sat down literally on the back of a napkin. I wrote everything that I didn't like about how the engagement went on there. And I created guidelines. I set up my own group, and I invited about 40 or 50 of my closest thought leader friend colleagues who I was lecturing with and stuff, and invited them in. And I thought it would be like a real high level discussion. And then I went to see a few hours of patients, and I didn't know at that time, but you could invite people. Like if you were a member, you could then invite people. I go into the room 3 hours, I come out, there's 120 members in the group. And what a great idea, and we need this, da-da-da-da-da. Because a lot of people felt the way I did. And ever since then, I've just focused on driving the mission and the guidelines and keeping the conversation as real as I can. And no discrimination, no haters. It's number one was no haters. And over the year, we've developed the core guidelines that have created a place that is inclusive of people. Like it doesn't push people, marginalize people to the sidelines to watch this core group of people who like to engage in a rougher way. And if they come into the conversation, they don't have to worry about as much getting bullied.
Right.
Because we are all experts in what we do. Everybody has very similar experiences, but very different way of thinking about things. So any comment on a clinical thread is very, very valuable to the rest of the people in the group. If you don't feel comfortable putting a comment up there, which some people never will, but if you don't feel comfortable because you're worried about how people might respond to it, in this group it's a little less of a worry because it's very welcoming. And that was my whole goal, was to create a kinder, gentler place where people can engage.
Yeah.
And it caught on.
Yeah. 37. Is that how many of them do you think are optometrists?
I know,
do you know?
there's 85, it varies, less and less as the number gets bigger from a statistical point of view. 35,000, 85 to 87% are ODs or OD students, who I consider in this group ODs as well. Mm-hmm. And then there's 6 to 8% opticians, smaller percent ophthalmic techs, and then industry professionals. So I have certain criteria that people from the industry can be in there, because one of the problems with that other group is it was OD only. And a lot of people saw that as an asset if they were an OD. But the problem was, if you have a problem with industry and they don't have an ear to the ground in the conversation, how are you going to affect change? Right. So I decided to include industry, and I kind of strategized they probably wouldn't talk much in there, and they don't. Mm-hmm. But they can see what we're saying, and as a result, we've made a lot of positive change. I'm in meetings all the time where we saw this on ODs on Facebook, and we didn't know this, so we're going to do this now. And that's what makes me the proudest, is the influence, how it's influenced industry to help us. Right. Maybe, hopefully the ones that have hurt us, I've kicked out. Like there are companies that have done anti-OD things, and I've just not, I don't allow them in there anymore. And it sends a strong message.
Right. Yeah. I really like it, because I usually go there to keep up my clinical skills, because I don't practice as much anymore. But it's good to keep an ear onto diagnosis and more of the medical stuff once in a while, just to refresh my memory.
And the photos and the strange
the photos,
stuff.
Stuff that it's better than the Googled image that you try to pull up during school. So tell me about how you became a consultant. Is that something that just kind of happened organically?
Just age. Have an expertise in age, and you're a consultant one day, right? It's everybody's dream to sit back and talk and make money. Right? Consultancy isn't something that I set up to do. It's something that, after succeeding in many, many things and failing in many, many things, I've gained knowledge that allows me to help other people avoid some of the pitfalls and do what they need to do to be more successful, and that's kind of what a consultant does. So that's what I mean. I'm half joking, half not when I say age. Where you've been in this industry a long time, you've seen and done almost everything. Yeah. People will want your expertise. So that kind of came out, and also I did specific things. I invented products, an IOL, and through that process, again, a lot of failures, a lot of successes. So now I can advise a company who's bringing a medical device to market, what they may want to think about or not think about, those kind of things. Yeah.
So it's both ways. It's the ODs, but it's also the industry, like products and equipment.
Yeah, I don't consult to ODs. I set out a long time ago, I decided that I would help ODs and never take money for helping them. If you want to give me a call or an email and you have a question about something related to something that I know, I never charge anybody individually for that. But if it's a company, yeah, I have consulting fees that I charge for that. I enjoy helping the colleagues. It's a way to give back.
Yeah.
And the students too. I travel to the schools on my own dime to talk. So if there's any schools out there that want me to come to the private practice club, don't worry about the funding. I will make it out there and talk to your.
So what's the best business book that you've read that you would recommend?
That's easy. So the book that changed everything for me was The E-Myth. And you'll hear a lot of doctors talk about this book. When the story behind the E-Myth, it's hard to tell you all about the E-Myth, but it tells you how you can either be your own boss, meaning you have the freedom to live the life you want while you have a successful business, and it doesn't require you to be there to be running. That's the key. You don't want to have to be there and have it still generate income for you, versus working for yourself, where you're the doctor, you're taking out the trash, you're looking over your receptionist's back, you're doing the accounting, you're charting at the end of the day. The book explains how that limits your ability to grow professionally from a financial perspective and from a freedom perspective. The biggest thing I got out of the E-Myth was my practice when I took it over was called Dr. Alan Glazier, optometrist. And I was trying to bring in a young associate to grow their business. And I went through several, and it just didn't work. It wasn't because of them. It was because I was the marquee doctor. And when people would find me on insurance, I said, I don't know that, but I want to see Dr. Glazier. So I read this book, and I immediately changed the name of the practice to Shady Grove Eye and Vision Care. And I told my receptionist, I'm like, any new patients, you book with the new doctor. And boom, it gelled. And that's when the real growth started. And it's all because of their philosophy of, how you can work less for yourself and be more of a boss and delegate and have a top-down organization.
Yeah.
That book was incredible.
Yeah.
There was another book I read called Positioning. It's a marketing book.
Okay.
Most of my reading though is online, looking at online resources more than books, because the books were getting kind of outdated.
Yeah.
You know.
Even like the marketing books, when I try to read it, I try to only get the ones that have been published within this year or last.
Exactly,
So
because
it's hard
it changed.
to-
Right, you're smart. It changes so much.
Yeah, so you're right.
Yeah.
Is there any websites that you would recommend where you get most of your knowledge?
So now, I love reading Mashable from the internet marketing kind of perspective. But it's maybe a little too much for people who just want to grow their practice and aren't getting heavy into the internet marketing. But it's good to know. It's good to browse. It's been a few years since I've really done a ton of reading on the practice growth stuff, because it's grown. I didn't need to do it after a while. It becomes organic. The practice continues to grow organically. But I can't think of any off the top of my head. Yeah. OD's on Facebook. Yeah. Ask your business questions in there. Yeah. That resource actually did take over for there's a lot of internet marketing questions. A lot of Yelp questions, things like that.
Yeah, so when I look at ods.facebook.com, I do notice that you guys have job listings now that you partnered with.
Covalent Careers, yeah.
And then you guys also have like Marketplace, right? Where people are starting
Marketplace
to
is
sell
new.
stuff. Yeah.
Marketplace, and we have a retail section now where you can get cute little eye mugs.
I saw that. Yeah, they have like a little eye necklace and mugs.
That's right. I had a retail site in the early 2000s selling stuff like that, and it did pretty well, and it got bought by a company back then. And then I realized there was nothing like that anymore, really, that was specific to optometry. So we put that in there. The whole odsonfacebook.com is a reference. It has directories of all the companies that you click and go to their websites, the schools and colleges of optometry, the nonprofits, and they're all in there. And then, of course, there's the content. We have a lot of original content in there. We're building a video capability in there.
Okay.
And it's really to curate a lot of the stuff that out-of-the-box things that we can send over to the social media community and share as well.
Yeah.
As well as provide some resources for people and make it fun and useful to come to. And we try and make it easy to navigate and all that stuff.
I love that because it's everything you need in one website instead of going to different websites
Right.
for everything. And so that just makes traffic, viewers so much easier because they just have to go to one place instead of going to different job listing places or like a retail marketplace or looking for equipment.
That's the concept,
Yeah.
exactly.
Okay, I love it.
Yeah, it's only 2 years old. It's had over 400,000 views, which is incredible.
Yeah. How do you guys market that website for?
We don't really. Well, we share it into ODs on Facebook. Like just by sharing, I'm always cognizant about not being too much of a hack and trying to market everything I'm doing. But like when something goes for sale in the marketplace, we'll just send a post over to ODs on Facebook. When there's a great new piece of content, we'll send a post over. When there's an event, we'll send a post over. And so they kind of feed off each other.
Yeah, that's how I found out about it actually, was a post for something on sale, so I was kind of interested in it.
Yeah.
Led me over there. And
The market's brand new. It's like 4 months old now.
Okay.
It's fun. It's starting to really gel. And I think it'll be something. It's like we call it eBay.
eBay?
No, Amazon.
I saw Amazon.
Right.
Maybe you're going between those two. I'm glad you went with Amazon.
Amazon. I put it up for a vote, and everybody said Amazon. I'm like, I like
Amazon. Don't bring that up.
No.
Yeah, Amazon's better.
Yeah, as long as they don't come after me for trademark.
Oh yeah, we'll see.
Yeah.
People get scared soon. And then let's see, what's the best thing that you bought for yourself less than $100?
Best thing I bought for myself less than $100. Can it be $200?
Just for you.
I have them right here. They are my new wireless headphones. See these babies?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, they're great. I'm an audiophile.
Oh, that's fun.
And I'm also listening to podcasts and stuff. And they just. I mean, everybody has a little. I use a Droid, so I can't use the little Apple ones.
Yeah.
But let me tell you, these have changed everything for me.
They must have really good sound.
They do. These are Bose, and they're tremendous. And they're just so useful. So I'm always have them in my ears. It looks like I have this big ring earlobe thing. It's not a good look for me.
Well, you turned 50, so maybe that's like your midlife.
Right. I gotta go get a tattoo now.
Okay, and then let's see.
What about you? Tell me something that you.
I get asked that all the time, and my answers change.
Okay. Lately.
But I always refer back. So it's the same categories. Always books, but the kind of books that so right now I bought 2 marketing books. One was called I think it's by Seth Godin, marketing. That one was published last year. And I picked up another book. I forget the title of it. I don't really know the titles of books. I just remember the content. But they're both marketing.
Do you want to meet Seth Godin? I know him.
What?
Yeah, and I'm going to be at an event he's having in DC in a couple of months. I can send you an invite. Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
I mean, we're not tight or anything, but we've met a couple times because a marketing group that I was in is bringing him to DC to talk, and it's a small exclusive group. You get to meet him and.
Yeah.
Who stole my cheese, right? Or was that? No, that's not him.
That's Spencer.
He was Purple Cow.
Oh, Purple Cow, yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Oh my god. Okay, yeah. Please send it to me.
Okay, I will.
Be there.
Cool.
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Okay. Any advice for somebody that's interested in purchasing a practice? How should they start out?
A lot of advice. So, first off, you want to have your own accountant look at the books. And typically, they'll look at 2 to 3 years of the books. You want to make sure that you get a look at the patient schedule to see that how many if it's full moving out. You want to make sure that the practice owner doesn't have any liens or debts that transfer to you when you purchase the practice. These are all just a few of the big items that you want to make sure of. You want to make sure the location. When they tell you location, I can't tell you enough. It is the most vital thing of all, because if you're in a good place and you're central where people are searching, they will roll in, and if you're not, they won't. You have to work really hard for that. You want to find out what the sale doctor, what their goodwill is, meaning are they willing to stay on for a while to help the transition. If they aren't, the value goes way, your price will go way down. It should go way down. Definitely recommend either a practice consultant or an advocate. I used an advocate for mine who helped me navigate the details of the sale when I was selling. But in terms of the buyer, they were more sophisticated. But if you're a young OD or an OD wanting to buy, just having an advocate help you through that process is really important. And advocates usually charge 5% of the purchase price, and they bring much more than that in value because they also help negotiate the price up. So I strongly recommend that as well.
What's the difference between an advocate and a practice consultant?
That's a good question. The advocates typically are more just negotiators who understand the industry. the practice consultants are people who've gone into practices and have valued them, and they understand. There may be even optometrists who, there's a lot of them in the industry that offer their services that way. So, but either way is great. You just need one on your team because you want to make sure that you're well represented without any worries about any conflicts.
Right. Kind of takes off the, on your shoulders, the negotiating and, unpleasantries.
Unless you're a really good negotiator, you may not need that, but it wasn't me.
No, I don't think a lot of people are.
Yeah.
So everybody's friendly.
Right.
So you don't wanna,
It's worth it. And if anybody wants to reach out to me with some names, I can definitely make some recommendations.
Okay. And then last question. Actually, 2 more questions. Sorry. What are your next projects that you're working on?
So, right now we have a lot of great stuff going on. We have the store and the market, and really, my next project is to bring in somebody to ODs on Facebook organization to help grow it into a little more of a media organization, because we have a lot of different assets out there. And Myopia Institute, which is a way to get found in Google fast for myopia control services. We have the blog, we have the Facebook, we have the email newsletter, goes out to 20,000 ODs. So we have all these things, and really I'm not qualified or have the knowledge or skill set to take it to the next level. So I think my next project is going to be to find a CEO, or find someone who can really grow this to the next level.
And put more time and effort into it. Right?
Yeah, and strategically know how to get even more value to the end user, the ODs out there, than I know what to do.
Right.
And I'm no spring chicken anymore, I won't lie. I'm cutting edge for my age and my age group, and a few years younger, but there's a lot of people out there, I see them on Instagram, they're real OD thought leaders, and you really, I don't really have the motivation to figure it all out anymore. So I'm handing that stuff off too, and just being in charge of the overall vision is what I want to do, while people who are much more sophisticated in those areas can scale it.
I think you're a thought leader where you can create and come up with great ideas, I think, and then you can execute it, but you need someone to kind of grow it. You're like the brain, like the visionary.
Yeah.
So you just kind of come up with
the
stuff.
big picture.
And then you have somebody, grow it. Right?
As we talked about before, the small picture stuff, I'm ADD, so I can't organize that. Right. I need somebody to do it. I've done it okay till now, but I'm definitely at my max.
Yeah, that's not your natural habitat.
Also, I feel like stepping back a little bit. I feel like I want more. My boys are going to be out of the house in 2 years, and I want to be able to be there, and that's going to be a weird transition. So there's certain things that I want to do that I need the time to do.
Right. No, I think that's perfect to do. Spend more time when you can. So.
Exactly.
Last question.
Mm-hmm.
Who would you like to hear from next? Who would you like us to interview next?
Oh. Wow. So, God, there's so many great people. So many great industry people out there. Who's doing really interesting stuff? I love Fayaz Magoob, and that guy is, talk about drive. He reminds me a lot of myself when I was in my 20s. He's a real up-and-comer. He's really into tech. I think he's a good guy to listen to and to kind of watch as he goes. He's going to be a big thought leader. He already is in optometry, and he's so young. Mm-hmm. So I love Fayaz. Who else is doing things? There's so many. I didn't prepare well for that question. I don't want to leave anybody out. But anybody. There's a whole cadre of young, engaged, really exciting ODs that I like to keep an eye on online and watch what they're doing, and as they move that needle forward. Emily Seitz, she's really big brain, and I think she's still a student at PCO. Very impressive, and she really is paying attention to everything. I don't want to leave anybody out, but I already left like 99.99% of all the other ODs out. Those are two I can think of, on the cuff. But yeah.
Okay. That's perfect.
Yeah, and I think you'll probably be interviewing some of those people.
I definitely will be reaching out to interested people like yourself. So
awesome.
Well, thank you so much for your time.
It's over?
I appreciate it. Yeah.
Thank you. It was awesome.
You.
Thank you for having me here, and any other time.
Yeah. So if you guys have any other questions, go ahead and email us, or you can go to our website, and then we can follow up with you guys. Thank you so much.